It's been an interesting training camp to watch so many different new pieces to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. But the running back room is really interesting because we know about Najee Harris from last year and everyone's expecting a big leap from him. But there's also a lot of guys under him that are working to earn who's going to be the second running back on this roster. I talked to running back coach Eddie Faulkner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to hear a lot from him on his outlook on how this room is shaping up. We'll also talk about Kenny Pickett getting to run with the twos in practice and a little bit of linebacker talk. All right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video, and if you enjoy it, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes where we bring your team every day. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day. Let's get down to talking about some things. First of all, I want to point something out. This is not my new studio. This is not my room. This is just a room at St. Vincent that I've been lucky enough to steal away for the last few episodes that we've done here. This is not my room. Dear people who say that is the TV that Jerome Bettis carried in here and that I am Jerome Bettis because I look like Jerome Bettis, stop it. You know what you're doing. You know you're wrong. Anyways, had to get out some of the people that have hit me up on Twitter. But let's talk about what's been going on at training camp. Now, Najee Harris still hasn't been practicing since his foot was stepped on by Miles Jack. He assures and the team assures it's not a big deal. But we've gotten to see the guys behind him. I will say in Tuesday's practice, Benny Snell, Jalen Warren all looked pretty solid. And I will say Jalen Warren had the biggest run of the day. He broke off a 25-yarder, made about 2 or 3 guys miss, was really tough to bring down. He's continued to impress. But we'll get to those guys in just a second. Najee Harris, as we know, has to be a big part of this offense and this team beyond just what he brings on the field. Is what he's trying to bring off the field as a leader. So I got a chance to talk to Steelers running back coach Eddie Faulkner one-on-one about Najee Harris. And I thought you guys would want to hear this full conversation because I asked not just about what he's improving, but about that leadership component. Listen to Eddie Faulkner here talk about some really important aspects. There's also a point where Najee Harris, even away from the game of football, is being a very good human being to his teammates, to his coaches, to specifically talk about how he reacted to the Dwayne Haskins passing away in back in the spring and how it impacted the entire team, but he wanted to be there for as many of his teammates as possible. Eddie had some really good insight, and this is a guy who works with Najee every day, obviously. Listen to what he has to say about Najee when we had our talk.
Is Najee better this year than he was last year? Because, last year, people were looking at his yards per carry, but if you watch the games, he was making plays. He was making guys miss. And he could easily say, you know what, I'm great, I'm fine. But it seems like this year, even without, he hasn't practiced in like a week or so, but when he was practicing, you saw, hey, he's quicker, he's faster. What are the things that he's done there technical to make that happen?
Well, I think, as we all know, it's well documented at this point is how much Najee puts into the training aspect of it, and that didn't change at all. If anything, that intensifies after getting your appetite, for what the NFL is and knowing what to expect in year 2. So I think, number one, that's it. And the second thing I would say is when we talk about the classroom, he's been great in the classroom in terms of understanding a little bit more of the detail that has to go into things. And I've really harped on trying to make sure he understands that. And he has, And so kudos to him. He's been doing good stuff.
When I watch him do stuff on the field, it does translate that he's working on that stuff in the film room. What's he like as a leader for these guys, even while he's not practicing? He's doing his own thing, working his way back.
He's been a great leader, man. And I tell you where it really, really, really started to show up. We've challenged him all year with it. His first opportunity to really show his leadership is the unfortunate passing to Dwayne, and you saw him rise up and be a guy that others could reach out to, talk to, whether that be his teammates. And he was calling me, Coach, you all right? Yeah, I'm good. You know what I mean? And I just really saw him wear that hat as a leader then, and it's really kind of taken off from there, whether it be on the field stuff, how he's trying to be engaged in walkthroughs. Sometimes he'll go over and provide a lift for the 2s or 3s as a scout team guy. He's really in it. He's always been in it, you know what I mean? Because he loves ball, but he's really in it. He's trying to find ways in which he can be more of a leader and more impactful and more vocal and all those things. And so kudos to him, you know what I mean? Like he's jumping in that role with both feet.
Man, that kind of a leader, that seems almost as much or even more important than being great on the field is being that kind of a guy. I guess, is that something that you guys are kind of leaning on for the entire offense, not just the running back room? Like, is he that guy that everyone's starting to kind of get around in all the different rooms?
Absolutely. And, you know, Coach T's documented in saying about how he's worked hard on nurturing him and bringing him along and readying him for that, because we can all see that he's capable of doing it. And, you know, with Ben retiring and stuff like that, there was a role in which somebody needed to kind of step in there. And, you know, he was ready to jump in it. And so it's something that, you know, we've kind of been preparing him for, and the time is now here, and he's doing a good job of, you know, taking over that role.
Gotcha. Eddie?
Now, there's a lot to take in there, a lot of different directions, but I wanted to listen to the whole thing because I could spend 5 episodes breaking down each response to each question, but I wanted to focus on, kind of get you the sense that, hey, like, there's a lot into Najee Harris. They don't just like him because he's good on the field. They don't just like him because he's nice or he's funny in the media. If you saw the clip that I uploaded to our YouTube channel, he told us a story about how Cam Hayward calls him Lil Naj X. And that was a real funny interaction that we had at training camp on Saturday. But there's more to him than just being funny and being a playmaker. This guy's thoughtful. This guy is, and not just thoughtful in the sense, oh, hey, I want to be nice to my teammates. He thinks deeply about the game. He thinks about strategy. He thinks about how to improve. And those people who think that, oh, well, he's not going to take that next step, I think you're counting this guy short of a lot of different things here. And on top of this, we haven't even gotten to really see Najee Harris over the past week and a half. Ever since Miles Jack stepped on his foot, it was like everyone kind of like, okay, we're not risking this guy. We know what he has. We're not worried about him being the one who needs to improve. Let's take a look at some of these backup running backs. And we're going to talk about those guys in a little bit. But listen to Najee Harris. We were asking him about breaking down film and things that he's able to do while he's not practicing, and how he's trying to help other guys in the running back room coming along. This was him on Saturday. From the same conversation he talked about Cam Hayward, this is him later in that conversation talking about the film aspect.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that you can correct in the film room. So, but just even looking at other teams and seeing what other guys do, maybe if you're playing a big blitz team, see what their blitzes are, see what their tendencies are. If there's a good blitzer and play a good Mike linebacker or something, see what some tendencies you do to give away some stuff. So I'm trying to tell him that this is some stuff you gotta look for, so he can get out in the routes faster, so he can play faster and reads. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you interviewed him, man. You guys should all interview him, man. Take his brain a little bit.
Do you have a message?
So he was talking there about saying you should go interview. We were talking about Jalen Warren. He was saying, I'm trying to help this guy play faster. Jalen Warren is an undrafted rookie from Oklahoma State. And we're going to talk about him more in a second, because Eddie Faulkner had a lot of high praise for him as well in our conversation. But that's Najee Harris saying, like, yeah, this guy's thinking about it. He gets the leadership components. We heard Mike Tomlin on the Pivot podcast talking about that very concept as, hey, we want to bring this guy along as a leader. We see him as a big part of the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think these are all things that play into why Najee Harris is ready to take the next step. And again, we're saying this, and the Steelers are confident about this, even when he's not practicing. He's lightly practicing on the side. He's kind of doing like the holding that everybody does when they're holding in, except he's just, they're just saying, hey, rest your foot. We don't need to see you right now. We need to see some of these other guys, because the Steelers do need to find out who their second running back is. So beyond Najee's leadership and seeing him continue to grow, they want to see some guy emerge behind him. A lot of people have been saying, go get Jordan Howard. I mean, we talked about that on this show. I talked about that in this show. Some people said Wayne Gallman, other guys that are out there, trade for somebody. Kareem Hunt wants to leave the Browns or something like that. But there's a little bit of confidence that Eddie Faulkner has in some of the guys that are fighting for that backup role right now. We'll talk about all those guys in just a second here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball season and all of the preseason bets you need to put in for both football to return in the NFL, basketball to return in later in the fall, as well as NHL. All those things have props, odds, lines, everything you could want to put money down to make it more fun as you get geared up for all the sports to be back, and to also put money down on baseball while you're waiting for that. It's a great opportunity. Go to betonline.net to learn about all the different sports wagering information that you can. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're here at St. Vincent College and talking again about the running back room. I wanted to look at them because I haven't spent too much time talking a lot about the whole room. We've talked a little about Jalen Warren because he's been showing up. He showed up again on Tuesday. I will say he continues to wow people and he continues to impress people. But if you were listening closely to my clip with Eddie Faulkner in the last segment, you could hear someone say, "Benny Snell, good business." You probably know that was Mike Tomlin if you knew that you could make that his voice. But Mike Tomlin was praising Benny Snell, and he has been. Benny Snell on Monday had a really good goal line play. There was one play where Minkah smacked him up right in the hole in a goal line situation, and Minkah was being Minkah. But Benny Snell went over the top then on the next opportunity and got into the end zone. And then on Tuesday, he had some really good runs. Again, I do think Benny Snell is taking steps forward with his game. Now, where does he rank with Jalen Warren and the other guys? That remains to be seen, but I got a chance to ask Eddie Faulkner about these other guys. Listen to what he has to say about Jalen Warren and the backups, because this does seem like a different running back room than it was last year, where it was just Najee Harris, and if he went down, there was no hope with nobody. There seems to be some hope that some of these guys will step up.
So, Eddie, we were talking to Najee on Saturday, and he was talking about how film work has been helping the group play faster. What have you seen from the guys, particularly, that they've been able to get them to play faster in you guys' game?
I've really tried to just, every year I take evaluation of my coaching and how I can improve and details in which I can apply better. This year we've really dove in, now that we got some older guys in the room. We really dove into the passing game and not knowing just what we're doing, but knowing what everybody else is doing. And that's been valuable, not only for them when they're put in that position to run those routes, but also for them understanding what everybody else is doing so they can understand their role in it as far as routes are concerned. So I think that part of it's been good, and it's stimulated good conversation. Whether we're quizzing, having quizzes or making little competitions out of it, the guys have been really engaged, and I think it's been fun for them.
What has Benny done that's made him better this year? It looks like he's a little bit sharper. Was there anything that you challenged him on coming into this camp that he's kind of risen to?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines as the first question. When it came to the passing game, I made these guys all flashcards. Chrissy Boger, our secretary, helped me with it, but I made them all flashcards and things where they could quiz themselves in the camp, and you could tell in the off season and in the summer, and you could tell the guys who really, bought into that, because they're having a better understanding of what's going on. So I think that's why you see with a lot of stuff that Benny's doing, he looks sharper because he is. You know what I mean? And I think he worked really hard at it and applied it this summer. You can see it.
Normally you guys are dealing with guys that are just on your roster, but now you got this Jalen Warren kid rips off another 20-yard run today. What's he done that's kind of jump-started him to make him maybe stand out more in these practices?
I'm really encouraged by Jaylen. He's smart. He's built for it in the sense of he loves the contact element. He loves football. He works hard in the classroom to know what he's doing. He's, for the most part, he's a guy that picks things up quickly. And so I'm really encouraged by him. I feel like he came in and when he got here, he had a high floor to begin with. And I just only see him getting better. So when you get a guy like that, in the capacity in which we got him, you're excited because you feel like you got a diamond in the rough. You kind of snuck one in there, and he's really good. Although I will say, through the process, the evaluation process of the draft, I looked at 60 backs total, including guys from anywhere, any name I saw that could be mentioned. And out of those 60, he was in my top 10.
Oh wow!
Out of that group, and there was a lot of guys that got drafted behind him, but I saw early you know what I mean, on his college tape that he had a chance to be a guy who could do something. So, you know, we're really excited about him.
How does a guy like that fall, you know, to be undrafted?
Couldn't tell you. You know what I mean?
Just
I don't know. Some people get so wrapped up in the measurables or, you know, the vitals, and, you know, he ain't run fast, he ain't do X, Y, Z, or he's not that tall. But, man, I'm glad the kid's here.
How is
So that was where I was starting to transition to my conversation with him about Najee. But you hear the excitement in him about Jalen Warren. It's not just the physicality. It's not just the plays he's making the field. He's talking about how he's smart in the classroom. That to me counts for a lot to a player's growth. If you're doing the right things off the field, where they're studying things and the coaches are pointing that out, and then you're showing it on the field in practice, that doubles up. Now, what often happens in my experience of covering the Steelers, talking to coaches and talking to players and figuring out who are the unsung guys, the guys that fans don't really know that are trying to make the team, that will make the team. There's often guys that will step up in big games, preseason games, and make big plays in those preseason games that fans go, wow, yeah, that's the guy. He's going to be the guy. But then you find out from maybe a scout or a coach or someone else, and such player, you know, it kind of gets around all the reporters that like, yeah, but he's not the greatest in the classroom. That was kind of just a one-time thing, or maybe he makes some plays at practice, but we want to see him do these things. We need him to step up in these ways, and he's not responding to these teachings too well. That's not an issue with Jalen Warren, apparently. And I think that's a very good sign that maybe the Steelers are very excited about him, which is why they went and got out a Master Teague instead of a Jordan Howard or a Wayne Gallman or someone along the lines that was like, hey, a veteran running back, come in here and be the number 2 back and just know that you're the number 2 back behind Najee Harris. There seems to be a confidence there. And again, he seems confident about Benny Snell. I also got Najee Harris. He said something positive about Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, saying they're both taking steps forward. But Jalen Warren, again, I bring this up again because I brought this up last week when we talked to him, and I brought it up. He brought it up himself, but he's Willie Parker's cousin. I think it's always fun to learn about those Steelers connections that some guys come into the organization with. But it does seem by all means that Jalen Warren is putting himself in the conversation that maybe he should be running back too. Now, Benny Snell is still running. He's kind of running as the first team running back right now while Najee Harris is hurt. So he's getting in there with Mitch Trubisky and he's getting the first reps. And I'll say he's doing well. Benny Snell, I know a lot of people don't like Benny Snell because he hasn't made enough plays and he hasn't really matured into the fullback that they were hoping for yet. But the guy's a very good special teamer. The guy is proficient in pass protection, and he's getting better in picking his holes and charging forward. I think part of it was he couldn't get to his gear to get to the hole to make the big play in certain situations. Now, at least in practice, I am seeing him get to the hole, even if it's just to get 3, 4, 5 yards. He's doing those things, and he's hitting it hard, and he's pushing the pile, and those are things you want to see. But again, Jalen Warren is right up in that mix too. And not only is he getting to the hole, but he's making guys miss. And I think a big test for Jalen Warren will come when it's time to do pass protection in live game situations, because I can tell you, running backs can lose entire jobs if they do not protect their quarterback. I've seen it on several teams, pro and college, where you may be just as good as the other running back out of the backfield when the ball's in your hand, and if you could take it to the house. But if they know that they can't call an audible where you're going to pass protection and you're the last line of defense for the quarterback, and they can't trust you to protect the guy that runs their offense, chances are they're going to probably find a way to put someone else in there instead of you in those situations, which is going to limit your opportunities. We got to see how Jalen Warren does that in a game situation. It's tough to judge that in a live situations. I've seen him with some good blitz pickups in 11-on-11 in practice. But again, it's different when you're coming to practice, when you have a better idea of where guys are coming from because you've been practicing against these guys. This is now the 3rd week of practice the Steelers have had. I want to see how he does against the Seahawks this weekend in that preseason game and what team that Jalen Warren runs with. I'm presuming that Najee Harris won't play in this preseason game, that it'll be Benny Snell running with the 1s, but that might mean that Jalen Warren is the guy with the 2s. It's also been an interesting mix because at training camp, Matt Canada, they've deployed Anthony McFarland in different ways. He hasn't just necessarily been the 2nd or 3rd running back. Sometimes he's been lining up in the slot and being motioned around. They want to use the speed on this offense to create misdirection and to create opportunities for their quarterbacks, their running backs, their wide receivers to make easier plays. Trying to make plays smarter, not harder. So all that being said, this running back room is young. I think there's a lot of upside to it. Eddie Faulkner seems very excited about it. When you get to watch stuff this Saturday, that's going to be one of the key things to watch is how are these other guys coming up? Does Jalen Warren put himself in the conversation to be that RB2 guy? Does Benny Snell settle it and say, hey, this is my job. I've been here a few years now. I'm ready to be that guy behind Najee. Or is it another guy? Is Mateo Durant the guy? Is Master Teague the guy? Is Anthony McFarland the guy? All those guys, young, athletic running backs, we'll see how they perform. But speaking of the twos, Kenny Pickett got reps with the twos. I want to talk about you guys about what I've been seeing there because I do think that he's taking steps forward with his game. We'll also talk about something I saw with the linebackers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We'll be right back after this. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're continuing our talk about Steelers training camp from Steelers training camp. I am in St. Vincent College right now, but let's focus away from the running back. So just some notes that I got from Tuesday's practice. One, Kenny Pickett definitively ran with the twos, and like there's been times when it's kind of been him and Mason just switching on and off here and there, but this was a straight up, he was the twos in 7 shots. He was the twos in 11 on 11. He was the twos in their 7 on 7 sets. He consistently ran with them. And that might not stick tomorrow. They might flip that tomorrow because Mike Tomlin has said, hey, everybody's going to get a chance at different levels. But Kenny Pickett's looked good. And I will say Mason looked better today than he had the last few days because I will say the last few days Mason had started to fall off a little bit and just in production. And again, day-to-day practice things happen. There's always circumstances like that. But for Kenny, what I'm seeing that's different about him now than it was in the first week of practice. One, when pads go on and things are closer to game situations, Kenny Pickett is a gamer. He is a guy who feeds off of a football environment, a real football environment. And that's where I think Kenny Pickett was struggling earlier was that, it wasn't a live situation. He was working behind the third string offensive line who couldn't block too much of anything in those practices. But now that you've given him some live situations, there's pads on, there's helmets on, these guys are moving around, there's hitting going on, there's some more stakes there. I think that he's had a chance to kind of feel his way into a lot more of these plays a lot better. Also, conceptually, he seems to be understanding where he's supposed to go. It's one thing to be a great classroom quarterback because that's what a lot of us think we are, right? When we're looking at this game, oh, I would have made that decision over there. Oh, I would have made that decision over there. That's how this game works. Why isn't it just so easy? But there's a whole lot that goes on in a play. It's why it's 11 on 11. It's why it's one of the hardest things to do in sports is to play quarterback every single down. And it takes time to take the process from, okay, this is how fast we need to go here. This is how fast we need to go here. And we're going to see how we're going to see how long it takes for that to translate. It takes time for every college quarterback to make that work. Now, some guys it's faster than others. Some guys it just happens to work for them. Sometimes you're in a loaded offense and that really helps. But for Kenny, one thing that I saw, the plays that he was making early on in training camp, they were plays kind of just off script. Hey, this guy broke open, he rolled to his right, he found him, made a good throw. Or this guy went deep and, he was just like, oh, let me see. Oh, wait, that guy is open. And he threw it there. And it wasn't on time. It wasn't within the structure of a play. It wasn't like hey, we designed for a situation where this guy ran a post, this guy ran it in. We wanted to force the safety to force a decision. And your timing to make a throw was within this 2 to 3 second window. Make it on this point. Those were the timing things I think Kenny Pickett was struggling. Over the past, I'd say 3 or 4 practices, he has lessened those problems. I've seen him make a lot more throws in rhythm, in time, with a concept that they've drawn up. And a lot of them are coming on the run too. And it's not him scrambling per se, him just panicking. It's him, hey, get him on a bootleg, get him on moving, using his feet, let him throw, let him think with his eyes while his feet are on the move. And he's able to do that. He's able to process things. I think that's a very good sign for Kenny Pickett that he is taking the steps forward. Because again, I've said all along, I do not expect him to win the starting job this year. I don't even expect him to win the starting job by mid-season this year. I think this is Mitch Trubisky's team to quarterback this year. I'm also seeing Mitch Trubisky get a little bit more fire up in him. I think that he's got his honeymoon phase over with the quarterback position for the Steelers, and now he's ready to take charge of the offense. Mark Caboli tweeted out a very good observation when we were at camp about how with George Pickens kind of messed up a route in a situation, and he saw Mitch Trubisky like dig up in him, and he hadn't seen that yet. I hadn't seen that either. Mitch Trubisky's kind of been the, hey guys, I'm just happy to be here, dude, and he's not that right now. He's about, hey, let's get this together. We're trying to win games. Also, the offense was very much tired of the defense's shenanigans, I will say. I brought this up on the Final Word on Channel 11 WPXI, where you can watch Jenna Harner. But on the Final Word on Sunday night, I brought up how the defense last week caught so many interceptions that, like, I told you about their dance that they do where they throw like a football in the air and they pretend like they're shooting. They go do 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 boom boom, and they get really excited, and it's so much fun for them. They did one at the end of last week where they were just like do 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 boom, who cares, because we're doing it all the time, and they seemed like they were too cocky about it. And so the offense scored a touchdown on and a really good touchdown, and they did the dance on Tuesday. And they did it, and the defense was like, oh, no, you did not do that to our faces. And so then there was a really funny sequence where Kenny, running a red zone drill, works him into the inside the 10, hits Miles Boykin on a corner route, touchdown, really excited. The offense is like, okay, Kenny, we're doing this. And then on the very next play, they say, hey, let's run this red zone again with Kenny. He goes out there, he throws a quick out, it's batted in the air, goes up high, and then Chris Steele snatches it, and it's an interception. And then they do then the defense does the dance, and now all of them are back into it and being loud and being excited, and everyone's so happy. Even Cam Hayward, he was like, take that, Kenny Pickett. So there's that battle of the offense versus the defense, just kind of feeding off of each other, challenging each other, pushing each other, the iron sharpens iron aspect that you always hear from Mike Tomlin and the Steelers when they're talking about these things. But the important thing here is that I think that Kenny is taking those steps forward to be a better quarterback, to find, hey, this is my rhythm. This is the structure of this play. This is when I need to do these things, and then actually doing them, because it's fine to say it in the classroom. But if I don't see you doing it on the field, it means there's a break in the connection there of what we're teaching to what we're learning. So that's why I think the Steelers are with him. Other things that I saw, Mitch Trubisky, like I said, getting sharper. He's getting nastier. He's throwing the ball. His timing's better. He's getting more confident. I really think that there's a good sign that this guy, it could be a good starting quarterback for the Steelers this year. Again, we'll see the first glimpse of that on Saturday. But before I go, I wanted to talk to you guys about the linebacker group, because Devin Bush had a good day. I'm not sure it was very good, but it was I'll put it in the pretty good discussion for linebackers. I see that, and I'm thinking like, and what I mean by that is there was a goal in 7 shots. By the way, the offense won 7 shots, 5-2. That was also very impressive today. I was like, whoa. And that was another reason the offense was kind of feeling themselves in this practice, because there's like, yeah, we're tired of losing to the defense. But one of the stops they had, Devin Bush, Benny Snell in the hole, bam. Devin Bush made the tackle, made the stop. Then when they were running red zone drills and they were running a 7-on-7, he had some tackles in space. He had some breakups. And I'm like, this is the Devin Bush that they were supposed to go get. This is what you want to see. This is where he needs to get back to. And Mike Tomlin was even praising him a little bit. And he was saying like, okay, Devin, that's what I need to see out of you. And I think that there's a chance that, hey, and I was saying, hey, I pointed out on this show, there was practices where I was like, man, it's not looking good for Devin Bush. He's struggling here. He's struggling there. But he's starting to turn it around. And I said it the other day. I thought I saw some good stuff out of him on Monday. I thought I saw even better stuff out of him on Tuesday. There's something they're pulling out of him. And again, some of it might be Miles Jack, because he also looked really good again on Tuesday, like he has pretty much all of camp. And Robert Spillane, I still think Robert Spillane, there's times when he gets caught in a coverage situation, if it's not, covering the flat underneath and kind of just running to that, that's where he struggles. But if you keep him in that limited linebacker role, I think he's just fine there. And that's where you get to play downhill and be physical. But Miles Jack, Devin Bush, I do think that there's something there. We're going to have a much more extensive conversation on the linebackers, because tomorrow on the show, I'll have Brian Flores. So that's going to be a fun talk. We're going to get to hear from him exactly as to what he's seeing out of Devin Bush, Miles Jack, Spillane, Also, even guys like Mark Robinson and Buddy Johnson, who are further down the linebacker depth chart, along with Marcus Allen, and seeing what those guys are putting together, because I've seen those guys make some big hits too. So we'll have a fun talk about that tomorrow. But I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. I will be starting at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with my new job covering the University of Pittsburgh's athletic program. This upcoming Monday on the 15th. That's why you haven't seen any articles writing there. But don't worry, when I do start writing there, it doesn't mean I stop here. The Locked On Steelers podcast will be still going pretty proud and strong. So be sure to check out all the work that I do. Again, follow me on Instagram at Carter Critiques, and check out this show Monday through Friday. Your team every day, your Pittsburgh Steelers, breaking things down. We'll have a talk with Brian Flores, go over some more things, and start getting you ready for the end of the week. We hope to have Jenna Horner back on as we preview Saturday's preseason opener against the Seattle Seahawks. Thanks again for checking us out here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'll be back on your screens and in your ears very soon.